Greetings, friends. My name is Charles Q. Banks, and I'd like to welcome you to the Classic Podcast. Today, I just wanted to make a short podcast with the topic of New Year's resolutions and completing your goals, accomplishing your goals, finishing your goals in mind. I wanted to bring this up because usually, as with every podcast, everything that I ever talk about, anything that I ever publish, I always am inspired to talk or to podcast or record something because I am actually reacting to something that I see on the internet or something that I hear in, real life. It's not always on the internet. Someone saying something that I disagree with strongly, or someone says something that I think is really interesting, and what I had to say about it is also interesting to myself, but also usually not said by anyone else. And if it is said by someone else, then I usually haven't heard it, and usually, it's a huge world. Everyone says something, and with all the people saying things, what I have to say is usually to be found somewhere in the records of human speech. There's nothing new under the sun. However, this time, it's based not just on anyone or someone in my, real life, IRL, but someone on the internet, and that's usually how it goes. And this time it is with Markiplier. I love Markiplier. He is a rather fun, loving, very hyper, very loud-mouthed, and very soothing voiced person who has been doing Let's Plays for, probably 6-7 years. I'm not actually sure. But he has 17 million subscribers, one of the biggest YouTubers out there, and one of the biggest Let's Players on YouTube. He is very, very popular. I love him mostly for his over-the-top reaction videos to video games that he plays and horror video games, and I would not recommend him to really anyone just because of his incredible language, his unbelievable tolerance for bad language and using it himself. Back in the old days, he used to say things, just off the cuff, like, blurt out a cuss word in the middle of his game when he reacted to something and be like, oh, I shouldn't say that. But then, as he's grown up and become more of a YouTuber, he's become more self-confident and more confident in being someone who actually cusses all the time. And I can't necessarily fault him for it. He's not a Christian, nor is he trying to keep himself to any Christian standards. He is a secular person, and I only watch him for my own entertainment. And, I probably shouldn't listen to him as much as I do, but, I'm of the opinion that you don't have to allow what you hear to influence how you speak, and I am very against speaking with a potty mouth myself. But all of that aside, I respect him for being a very honest person, and recently I was kind of bored looking through his videos, and he's been rather fond of these vlog-style videos of himself, where he just talks about his lifestyle, rather than a video game or YouTube or anything, and they tend to be very emotional and very from the heart, and that's something that I really respect about him, is that he is very, very honest, very just forthcoming with his feelings, forthcoming with what he does. Sometimes he admits that he has been wrong in this way or that way, or somewhat they've been, shilling or selling himself out in some way, and it's all for the fans. He is extremely loving towards his fans, and has a great charity work that he does. And so anyway, he sometimes addresses all of that in these vlogs, so I just thought, I might as well give it a listen. I have nothing better to do. And so what his video was, and it is called, and you can find it right now on YouTube if you wish, there's no real bad language in it, no bad language at all, and the name of the video is, Did You Keep Your Promise? ? And When you watch the video, it becomes clear that he's talking about the New Year's resolution, and that you may or may not have given yourself to accomplish. And that's what he talks about, is the fact that he made a big resolution video for himself at the new year, stating what his goals were for the next year. He was feeling really, really strong, very healthy. His his subscription level is through the roof, and his channel is just skyrocketing. He is in a very strong place in his life. And so when he made those resolutions, he planned to learn several languages, learn German and French, to learn guitar, which he's not very good at the present, and something else. Oh, to become completely in shape, to be a perfect human specimen. And I think that he was rather aware that he wouldn't probably accomplish all of those goals in 1 year, and the year isn't even out. It's just the 5th month, the end of the 5th month. So I guess he's trying to just talk about his resolutions in the middle of the year, because he was not able to complete them. None of them have he accomplished yet. Has he accomplished? He has not accomplished any of those, and that's what the video is about. He's kind of apologizing to his fan base in a way, but also saying in a kind of inspirational way that he should not necessarily have expected so much of himself, and if you made such high resolutions for yourself, then that's okay. We all fail, and he did as well. But he's not going to stop trying to better himself. He's just going to make allowance for him making unreasonable expectations, and only going forward with what he is able to accomplish. And it was a good video, just 10 minutes. I even recommend you to watch it, because that will give you a little bit more understanding of what I'm about to say, but you don't have to in order to understand. What this brought up to my mind is just the fact that New Year's resolutions has always, to me, been something of a meme. Something that is an artificial creation of American culture, I guess. I mean, every culture, I think, has a yearly goal-making thing, everyone has an end-of-the-year celebration, which is finished by, either praying in the new year, or a certain religious blessing, or, like in America, most people give themselves a New Year's resolution and hope to accomplish them. Everyone does this. I think it's just a human thing to have goals at the beginning of a year and try to accomplish them throughout the year, because a year is a rather large period of time that is very well measurable, and a person can change a lot in a year. So if you have a whole year to accomplish something, it's not too unreasonable to, think that you might be able to accomplish it. The thing with Markiplier is that he made 3 or 4 goals for himself. Each one would take probably more than a year. And that's what he was admitting to himself and to all of his fans, because he was very online, open with how he was doing with his resolutions. He was really into it. If you were a fan of Markiplier, you would have seen on Facebook all of these different posts of him working out, and his sweaty shirts after he went to the gym, and the fact that he was playing guitar and stuff, and he'd be constantly posting about it. And now it appears, like everyone does, that he failed in his New Year's resolution. And it's just remarkable to me, because when it comes to New Year's resolutions, I am already at a place in my life, and I'm younger than he is, where, and I've had this in my life, in my mind, for many, many years, that the New Year's resolution is just a silly way to psych yourself up for the new year. That's the way I look at it. I'm kind of more cynical towards New Year's resolutions than most people, but it can be completely beneficial if done the right way, and with the right expectations of yourself, because that's what everyone always gets, you know, destroyed by in their emotions, is that they had all of these great, great ambitions and accomplishments that they wanted to accomplish, and they weren't able to, and now they feel like such a failure, and now that's something that they have to have some emotional deliverance over or something. It's a big deal to a lot of people, the New Year's resolution. And what Markiplier came down to is having goals is good, and if you fail them, don't worry, try again. It's okay. Don't make unrealistic expectations for yourself or resolutions, but rather make more realistic ones and stick to them. And if it's worth doing, then you should do it. Always be improving yourself, and that was his encouragement. And many people are like very invested in Markiplier, that if he's keeping his promises, then they'll keep theirs, and it's like this kind of symbiotic relationship between Markiplier and his fans. That's not the way I am at all, but I see this happening with people. People who aren't Christians usually tend to worship or to, just really latch on to something or someone else or someone else's life or a piece of entertainment for their own emotional welfare. And if they see that that person is doing well, their idol, then they can say, yes, I can aspire to do that myself, because if he can do it, so can I. And no one is Markiplier. Not everyone can be Markiplier. I'm certainly not Markiplier, but to be honest, Markiplier did definitely encourage me to become a YouTuber and to actually publish some of the things that I have in my mind. And I don't, I'm not in any way successful as a YouTuber. I just put things on the internet in hopes that my friends might be able to listen to them and get something out of them, and kind of communicate with my friends, really, and anyone who might be interested, such as yourself, if you're actually listening to this for that long. So, what am I getting at? Why did I actually get into this in the first place? I actually commented on Markiplier's video, and because I felt like people need to hear this. Everyone that I've ever heard of who has made a New Year's resolution always comes to it in something that I would call an immature way. That sounds like really rude. It sounds really mean-spirited to call everyone who makes a New Year's resolution immature, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that most people come at the idea of a New Year's resolution in an immature way, and Markiplier was, saying that he himself did as well. Every year he's made those kinds of resolutions and failed, and I think that's something that anyone can really relate to, especially Markiplier's fans can relate to. The gum-chewing public can definitely relate to not completing their resolutions, because everyone, absolutely everyone, at some point in their life, I feel, almost, in America, has made the unrealistic New Year's resolution and failed. And it's almost embarrassing to the human race that everyone has to go through that and come out on the other end completely discouraged by it. I certainly have. It's been a long time since, but I certainly did it, and I remember it. I can't really remember what my actual goals were, but I really quickly learned to not expect really anything of myself, especially when it comes to gauging out a full year for my resolution. A year is far too long for me to actually plan anything out for, and sometimes even a day is too long for me to plan out a resolution or a goal. And when it comes down to New Year's resolutions, what I've learned, and what I learned way back in my past, when I was probably in middle school, when I was 12 years old, I learned that the New Year's resolution is not something that should even be a big deal to anyone. If anything, it is something that can teach you how to make small goals for yourself throughout the year and to accomplish them slowly but surely, and then make a new resolution for yourself that also is not a big deal. And then once you do that, you will gain confidence in yourself, and so on and so forth. Practice makes perfect. just having something a little bit more difficult for yourself, and then accomplishing that, and then something a little bit more difficult than that, and then continuing on in a cycle of always improving yourself, always learning something, always reading, always working your body, always working your mind, always working your eyes, always working your ears, learning how to listen to people, learning how to speak properly. I think everyone should learn how to make goals for themselves, and New Year's resolutions and failed New Year's resolutions can really help you to learn that. But what I see happening in culture, in American culture in the West, is people every single year making a New Year's resolution that's way beyond their pay grade, way over their heads, because they were all worked up on New Year's Eve night, and they just, drunk or out of their senses or something, make this big resolution, this big old list, and then the next day they say, I was drunk last night, but let's go for it, let's do it, let's try and see, they get really hopeful the morning of New Year's, and they're like, I can do it, we can all do it, we can all accomplish our dreams, and then reality takes its toll on them, as it always would have, and they're disappointed yet again, year 15, 20, 30, whatever it is, however old they are, and they never learn from that mistake. And it's like, what's wrong with you? Like, I've seen this type of video before. I can't remember what it was or what it was called, by Markiplier apologizing that he couldn't make his New Year's resolution. He's never made this big of a deal about it, I don't think. But every year he's made comments and related to himself in reference to New Year's resolutions, and that he had or hadn't accomplished it. And I'm sure that sometimes Markiplier has actually accomplished his goals in reference to New Year's resolutions. But that isn't the issue. The issue is, when it comes to New Year's, what's the big deal? If you make a resolution, you should expect that it will fail. And not that should allow you should never allow yourself to get hopeless or discouraged by the fact that we are weak human beings. I think we should know that from school level, like from middle school level or earlier. Our parents should teach us that while we should always aim for the best and for excellence in everything that we do, that we are weak, that we are frail, and that we cannot accomplish all of our goals, and some of our dreams actually are unrealistic. Not every president who became president wished when they were little to become president. I'm sure that did happen, but life happens to people, and people in positions find themselves capable of fulfilling positions of authority, and then they get more authority, and then more leadership, and they're making more money, and then they see the need for the country or for themselves to become the president, and they go for it. And sometimes even that may not happen. So, yeah, like New Year's resolutions, I've just basically given up on them. And like I said before, I am very cynical when compared to the gum-chewing public, if I may call them so. Just people that are very optimistic all the time, and every year make a New Year's resolution and fail. I think everybody does that. And so, yeah, while I don't believe in New Year's resolutions because of this. There are so many factors in life that can change the way that you live, and sometimes opportunities just pop up, and that's what I'm saying. For Donald Trump, this is a good example. I don't think he ever really thought about becoming a president, no matter what people say. I don't think he ever thought about becoming president because he's already such a huge millionaire. He didn't need any more authority, any more power. And some people do try to blame him and say that all he wanted was more power. But But according to his own admission, at least, his own words, he just saw an opportunity, he saw how America was going, and he took that opportunity to try and become president, to try and do what he thinks is right. And no one can say that he is doing what he thinks is wrong for America. He's going to be doing what he thinks is right. And, you know, maybe it was his New Year's resolution to become president that year. But if he hadn't the opportunity, then that would have also been a failed New Year's resolution. But even if he got it, if it was his New Year's resolution and he succeeded, that's because it was a realistic goal. It was always a realistic goal for Donald Trump since like 10, 15 years ago when he really got big. He could have run any number of those years and he probably would have been elected. And so that's the, I guess, the moral of the story, is that if you make realistic goals for yourself, you might still fail, but there is a lot more chance that you will succeed. The probability numbers of whether or not you can succeed is actually discernible every time you make a resolution for yourself. I think it actually is pretty realistic for Markiplier to get into, you know, very good physical shape. And I think he actually has accomplished that. But he doesn't think he accomplished that because his reality is that he, you know, he has a little pudge around his belly, but if you look at any of his pictures, he is in astounding physical shape compared to just about anyone who is a Let's Player. He's one of the buffest. He is the jock among Let's Players. And so he had a huge, higher, you know, Greco-Roman, probably, idea of what a chiseled body he would have by the middle of the year that he just couldn't succeed in probably ever because he's already so chiseled. And so that's what people always do, such unrealistic goals. But if he had made the goal to actually have a goal of being chiseled, he definitely has realistically succeeded already. And so, you know, that's all that I really wanted to say, is that while I do not believe myself in making New Year's resolutions, I believe that it can be helpful. And the reason why I don't believe in New Year's resolutions is just because once I have seen that New Year's resolutions only really help to teach you how to make realistic goals, you no longer need a New Year's resolution to make yourself feel good about yourself or to better yourself in some way, physically, mentally, emotionally. You can make that kind of resolution a realistic one every single day of your life, and you will begin to feel good about yourself because you have made goals and you have completed them. And that is the only reason for New Year's resolutions to exist, is to make you feel good about becoming a better person in some small or large way. But if you fail in doing something huge, you will feel hugely depressed about it. What you get out of your resolution is completely proportional to how much you expect of yourself. If you expect little of yourself and do well, you will have, you know, probably a little bit of you know, big self-confidence. If you have huge expectations for yourself and fail, you will be extremely depressed. But if you succeed in a huge goal, you will feel hugely, like, probably overconfident because you were able to succeed in that. And that is never a good thing, to be overconfident. So that's the moral, is that, you know, who cares about whether or not you've accomplished your New Year's resolution? If you are making resolutions every day that are realistic and you succeed, then you should have all the confidence in yourself in the world. You deserve a pat on the back. Just a pat on the back, that's all. And for some people, that is more than enough to keep them alive, to keep them going in themselves. There's so many depressed people out there who feel like such horrible failures just because they feel that they've not accomplished anything big. And you know what? No one ever accomplishes anything big without starting small, and I think everyone knows that. But how small is a question that I think no one has really been able to sufficiently answer in general. That is a question for every person to answer for themselves. And so, all I want to say in passing this video is make a daily resolution and follow through with it, whatever it is. And, you know, I'm not in any strong position to actually say this to anyone because I'm not successful as Markiplier is. The only reason I think that his, you know, New Year's resolution video has any weight is because he is already successful, and him honestly admitting that he failed in something makes it that much more poignant when he says it. Because what person in high and lofty position with tons of fans, millions of fans all over the world, actually honestly admits their defeat? Very few, and that's the good thing about being humble. Everyone should be humble, and I think even Markiplier fails in that sometimes too, but he's just an honest, everyday guy, and admitting that makes him a better man than someone who actually, you know, succeeds in their New Year's resolution every single year, which I don't think anyone ever has. And that's the theological principle of human depravity. We are all depraved, and even when we find Christ, even when we have spiritual salvation, we still have the mark of the flesh. The curse still rests upon us until we are awakened with him, with Christ, in salvation, in the new millennium, in heaven. And so that's what we look toward. But here on earth, while we still remain, we have to be able to feel good about ourselves. We have to be able to know that we can make good, even though we are depraved. And just to know that me, in my chronic fatigue state, that I can get up and do a load of laundry, and finishing that goal, making that goal for myself at the beginning of the day, and completing that by the end of the day, that is enough for me, because that is a realistic goal, and to be honest, I have completed that goal. I still have to put the clothes away, but that is another goal for tonight, you know. I'm making that goal next. And if you find yourself in a position where you cannot complete the goals that you won, you know, earlier, at an earlier time you would have been able to complete, do not feel bad about it. Each day has enough woes for itself. And so deal with the day. Don't deal with the year. Don't deal with the month. Don't deal with any number of days that is more than this one. You're only conscious one day at a time, one moment at a time, one moment to the next. So, yeah. Whatever you got out of that little speech there, know that you are loved by God, and that nothing is impossible for him, and that your goal of getting up and taking 2 steps is not too small a goal to feel good about succeeding in. My name is Charles Q. Banks, and I'd like to thank you for listening. Just keep on keeping on. God bless.